What's up, guys? Today I'm going to do a flea market find restoration. I got this axe slash hatchet for $5, and I'm going to try to restore it with the least amount of tools as I can, just to show everyone that when you're around the homestead, you don't need awesome tools, you just need to get creative. I didn't change any of the blades out, new sandpaper, nothing like that. I just kept everything as is from tools that have literally been in my barn for like 2 years getting all dirty. And a lot of these tools are Harbor Freight tools like you're seeing here, and the grinder, I think it was like $10. But I just started with the grinder first to try to get off the surface rust and everything as much as I can at the beginning. Came out pretty good for a couple of minutes of work, not bad. But I figured I'd try to get in there a little more with it, and I'm trying to stay away from using a sand or anything, but I know that's coming, but I'm trying to do as much as I can with this grinder first. This is an older sander that we've had. It's just been out in the barn, as you can see, super dirty, but it works. The sandpaper is super old. That's why it took me a while, but it kind of worked because it kept it from gouging up the metal too much. It's coming out a lot better now. Figured I'd try to sharpen up the edges just a hair. Just trying to get any of the small little pieces I had left. Then I got this little wire wheel thing that I had, and I just hooked it onto a cheap Black & Decker drill. The drill barely works, but it works good enough. This actually worked pretty good to kind of buff it out and smooth it out. You see a lot of lines still in the axe itself, but I kind of like that. I wanted to go more rustic than super brand new looking. Then I just went back to the sander for a little bit and try to buff out what I could. Then I went back one more time with the little wire brush just to see what I can knock off just to get in the grooves. It worked pretty well. I'm pretty sure we got this disc from Harbor Freight, and it was like $1. Not bad though compared to what it looked like at the beginning. I just try to come in and sharpen the tip just a little bit, nothing crazy. Now I'm going to use some sandpaper. I got 600 grit and 2000 grit that I found out in my barn. Just a little wet sand. I know it wouldn't do a whole lot. I wasn't trying to polish it. I was just trying to make it as smooth as possible, just to touch. Then I just wiped it down to clean it to see what it'd look like. Came out fairly well for just a little bit of work. Now the handle was broken. I didn't want to go buy some really nice wood to do a handle. I'm just going to use this as just like a decoration anyways. And so I just went out and got a cedar log that I had out in my back pasture for about 2 years. I figured it's a good way to learn and try to mill my own lumber, if you would want to call it that. The blade on this saw is absolutely terrible. It's super old, and as you can tell, it's smoking and not cutting well, but again, I just wanted to show you that you don't need the most amazing tools to make something when you're living on the homestead. I use this cheap saw right here, barely works. And with this wood, it was very hard to cut. I tried to use it as good as I could, but it was just a piece of junk, so I had to go to the table saw. I understand this isn't the safest way to do it, and there's no guards or anything on the table saw, but luckily I haven't had any incidences since I've done this. No injuries that are too bad. But I would definitely recommend doing something a little safer. But I just wanted to show again that you can use an old table saw, old blade, old tools, and still get a pretty decent product at the end. I just try to carve out as much of the wood as possible. Then I took my grinder again and went to town on it. This was a beating. It was taking forever, but it was working. I was just trying to use the least amount of tools as I possibly could. But I finally get tired of it. So I pulled out the sander, the hand belt sander. I didn't even change the sandpaper on it. It was pretty used and it was taking me a long time, but again, just wanted to use what I had without, buying new tools and new sandpaper, new blades. The weather got kind of bad and I helped a neighbor, so I had to stop. So this is day 2 of the build. The handle was a lot thicker than I really wanted it to be, and so I just used the table saw and ripped it in half. Then I went back to sanding a little bit more. The belt sander was way easier to use than that grinder. I wouldn't recommend the grinder at all. I just tried to use it just because I had it. Again, you can see the belt on it moving. It's old and worn out, but just wanted to use what I had. Then I just cut the top off, measured where the top of the axe would go, and then started cutting. Again, just use a table saw. It's easiest. Not the safest, but it is the easiest. Then I just got the belt sander out again and went to town on it. I just tried to round it off as good as I could to fit the form of the axe. It took a long time, but finally got it. I didn't like how thick it was at the top of the handle, so I just came in and tried to sand it down a little bit more. This belt sander came in handy big time. It was easy to sand it down smooth. But this is where it's at right now. Then I just got some sandpaper and hand sanded. I started with some rougher sandpaper and then I went back to 600 and smoothed it down, and it came out really nice. It's super smooth to the touch, which I was kind of surprised that I could get it that way. But as you can tell, it looks pretty close to the old one. Now I'm just cutting the top part so I could stick it in the axe and then put my wedge in there. Just put a little super glue, put the wedge in, and hammered it in. Then just sanding down the excess wood on top, making it nice and clean looking. I didn't like how it was on top, so I just sanded it down a bit. Not too bad for the first time ever doing this. I didn't have the proper tools. I didn't have the proper knowledge how to do this, but I just wanted to show again that you can do something without a lot of tools. Just get creative.